Part 1. Falling in love. I used to roll my eyes whenever someone said, "It just happened." Like love was some kind of accident. A spilled drink. A wrong turn on a highway. Then Austin, Texas proved me wrong. I met Emily Carter on a random Tuesday afternoon, the kind of day that wasn't supposed to matter. I ducked into a small coffee shop off South Lamar to escape the heat and my own thoughts. She was standing in front of me, arguing with the card reader like it had personally betrayed her. "I swear," she said to no one in particular, "this thing hates me." I told her machines only act that way around beautiful people. She laughed, not polite, not forced, but loud and real. That laugh hit me harder than the Texas sun outside. I knew right then I was in trouble. We sat together without making a big deal out of it. No flirting strategy. No smooth lines. Just two strangers talking like we'd been late to the same conversation our whole lives. She told me she was a graphic designer. I told her about my painfully boring office job. She called it stable, then added, and kind of hot, actually. I still don't know what she meant, but I liked it. The early days felt unreal. Late-night walks through the city. Music playing too loud in the car with the windows down. Text messages at 2:47 a.m. asking, "Are you awake?" Even though we both knew the answer. Everything felt easy, effortless, like we'd skipped the awkward parts everyone else warns you about. I remember lying in bed one night, staring at the ceiling, smiling like an idiot, thinking, "This is it. I finally found my person." That thought felt safe, comfortable, belmano. And I had no idea that thoughts like that are usually the opening line of the most painful stories people ever tell. Part 2. Cracks appear. Here's the thing no one tells you. When something starts going wrong, it doesn't feel dramatic. It feels confusing, like you missed a step somewhere and now the rhythm is off, but you can't tell when it happened. At first, Emily just got busy. That's what I told myself anyway. Work stress, deadlines, long week, normal adult stuff. She stopped texting first. Not completely, just enough for me to notice. I'd send something casual, like a meme, or a "how's your day?" and get a reply hours later. Shorter, less energy. Still nice, but different. Like talking to someone through a wall. Plans became vague. Maybe Friday. I'll let you know. We'll see. I hated how much those words messed with my head. One night, I asked her if everything was okay. I tried to sound calm, not needy, like I was asking about the weather. She looked at me like I'd asked something ridiculous and said, "Yeah, of course. You're overthinking again." Again. That word stuck with me. Because she wasn't wrong. I was overthinking. I just didn't know why my brain suddenly felt like it was in survival mode. I started paying attention to stupid details. She kept her phone face down. She'd smile at texts and not share why. She didn't talk about her day anymore unless I asked directly. Even then, it felt edited. But here's the most embarrassing part. She was still amazing sometimes. Some days she'd be affectionate, playful, exactly like before. Those days reset all my doubts. I'd think, "See, you're imagining things. Don't ruin this." So I adjusted. I became quieter, easier, less emotional. I told myself this was just a phase and that real relationships require patience. Deep down, though, something felt off, like loving her had turned into walking carefully, hoping not to step on whatever was already cracking beneath us. I ignored it, because admitting something was wrong felt scarier than pretending everything was fine. Part 3. Breaking point. The actual breaking point wasn't some huge fight. No screaming. No dramatic exit. Which somehow makes it worse, because I didn't even get a clear moment to point at and say, "That's when everything died." It happened on a random Sunday evening. We were sitting in her apartment, half watching a show neither of us cared about. I noticed she kept checking her phone, typing fast, then locking it the second I looked over. I tried to ignore it. I really did. But something in my chest felt tight in a way I couldn't explain anymore. So I asked, not accusing, not angry, just tired, "Are you still happy with me?" She didn't answer right away. She paused the TV. That pause lasted maybe 3 seconds, but it felt like my body already knew what was coming. She said, "I don't know." That was it. That was the sentence that knocked the air out of me. She started explaining, but it came out messy. She said she'd been feeling distant for a while, that she didn't feel the same connection anymore, that she cared about me, but not in the way she used to. All very calm, very reasonable, like she was returning something she'd borrowed and no longer needed. I asked if there was someone else. She hesitated, just long enough. She said nothing happened. She said that a lot. Actually, nothing happened, but there was someone she'd been talking to. Someone who made her feel things again. She promised she hadn't cheated. I don't know if that was true. At that point, it barely mattered. I felt stupid. For trusting. For ignoring the signs. For shrinking myself just to keep her close. I didn't cry right away. I just sat there, nodding, pretending I was processing it like an adult. Inside, everything was collapsing at once. The future I'd imagined, the one I never even told her about, disappeared in real time. When I finally stood up to leave, she hugged me. I let her. That hug felt like saying goodbye at a funeral where the person is still standing in front of. Part 4. Aftermath. The days after the breakup blurred together in a way that's hard to explain unless you've been there. Time still moved, technically, but I didn't. I went to work, answered emails, nodded at the right moments, all on autopilot. It felt like I was watching someone else live my life from a few feet behind my own eyes. The quiet was the worst part. No more good morning texts. No random photos of her coffee. No, made it home, messages. My phone stayed painfully silent, and every time it buzzed, my heart jumped like an idiot before dropping again when it wasn't her. I replayed everything. Conversations, looks, moments that felt normal at the time, but now seemed loaded with meaning. I became obsessed with figuring out when she stopped loving me. Not why, just when. Like if I could find the exact moment, maybe it would hurt less. Spoiler, it didn't. Sleep was a mess. I'd crash for 2 hours, wake up with that sinking feeling in my chest, then lie there staring at the ceiling until sunrise. My brain kept offering useless thoughts like, you should have said this differently, or if you'd just been more patient. I check her social media way too often. Every post felt like a personal attack, even when it was just a picture of her lunch or some dumb quote about growth. She looked fine, happy even. Meanwhile, I was eating cereal for dinner and calling that self-care. Friends told me I deserved better, that she didn't communicate, that I'd be okay. I nodded and thanked them, then went home and felt everything crash back down. Comfort only works when your heart is ready to hear it. Mine wasn't. The hardest realization hit late one night. She wasn't hurting like I was. She'd already grieved the relationship while still in it. I was just late to the funeral. That thought broke something in me. Because loving someone after they've emotionally left feels like screaming into a room that's already empty, exhausting, humiliating, and painfully quiet once why. Part 5. Acceptance. I didn't wake up one day magically feeling better. There was no big turning point, no inspirational quote that suddenly fixed everything. Acceptance came in pieces, small, uncomfortable ones I didn't ask for. At first, it showed up as exhaustion. I got tired of replaying the same memories on a loop. Tired of checking my phone. Tired of imagining conversations that were never going to happen. At some point, the pain didn't disappear, it just stopped being new. I finally deleted our chat thread. Not because I was strong, but because scrolling through it felt like touching a bruise on purpose. I boxed up the things she'd left at my place and shoved them in the back of my closet. Out of sight, not out of mind, but it helped a little. I started noticing things I'd ignored before. How often I'd apologized for having feelings. How I'd been the only one fighting to keep us okay. How lonely I'd felt even when she was right next to me. Those realizations didn't make me angry. They just made things clearer. One night, I caught myself smiling at a memory of her. And instead of spiraling, I just let it exist. No what-ifs. No bargaining. Just a quiet, sad acceptance that something good had ended, and that didn't make it a lie. I stopped wondering if she'd come back. I stopped writing messages in my notes app that would never be sent. I stopped needing her to understand how much she hurt me. Closure, it turns out, isn't something someone gives you. It's something you build when you're tired of bleeding. Acceptance felt boring, plain, almost disappointing, but it was peaceful in a way the chaos never was. I still missed her. I probably always would, in some small corner of my life. But missing someone no longer meant I had to keep hurting myself for them. That's when I realized letting go isn't loud. It's quiet. It's choosing over and over again to stop reopening a wound just to prove it was real. Part 6, New Beginning. I didn't expect it, but life slowly started sneaking back in. Not with fireworks or a sudden aha moment, but in small, almost invisible ways. A cup of coffee in the morning tasted a little less bitter. A song on the radio didn't crush me instantly. I laughed at a stupid meme and didn't feel guilty about it. I started going out again. Not with anyone, not to replace her, just to feel alive. Walks through the city felt different. The streets weren't haunted by memories anymore. They were neutral, empty canvases. I realized I could fill them with something else, something mine. Friends dragged me to a tiny punk show in a bar I would have never gone to before. I hadn't realized how much I'd been hiding from the world, like my heartbreak had glued me to my apartment floor. Standing there, sweaty and exhausted, surrounded by people screaming at music I didn't understand, I felt free. Weird, but free. I started trying things I'd put off for years. Cooking, sketching, running again, even though I'm terrible at it. I even joined a book club, mostly because I wanted excuses to leave my apartment. Every small step felt like reclaiming parts of myself I'd given away without noticing. And yeah, there were still moments when her memory hit me like a freight train, a familiar scent on the street, a joke she used to make. But now I could smile instead of wince. I could feel nostalgia without needing to hurt. I don't know if I'll ever be over her completely. Maybe that's not the point. Maybe moving on isn't about forgetting. It's about living anyway. Loving again is scary, but I can finally imagine it. Not as a desperate hope, not as a distraction, but as something real and possible. The first time I laughed genuinely after the breakup, the kind that comes from deep in your chest, I realized life doesn't stop when love ends. It shifts, changes, gets messy, but it keeps moving. And if you let it, maybe you move too. I'm not perfect. I still OV. Part 7. First real steps alone. It's funny how small things become huge when you're starting over. Like the first weekend without Emily that didn't feel like a punishment. I didn't spend it crying on the couch or scrolling her social media obsessively. I actually went outside. I made coffee. I sat on my balcony and watched the city move without me dragging it down. I even went to that stupid little bookstore I loved, but had stopped visiting because it reminded me of her. And I bought a book. Not for her, not for us, but for me. Sitting there, flipping through pages I didn't care to share with anyone, I realized how little of my life had been just mine over the past year. I started talking to friends more. Not about her, not about the breakup, just regular boring life stuff. At first, it felt awkward. I'd laugh and then immediately feel guilty, like I was betraying some sacred memory. But the guilt faded, replaced with a strange, unfamiliar feeling. Hope. It wasn't a giant, flashy wave. It was a tiny flicker that whispered, maybe you can survive this. I even signed up for a beginner's yoga class. Terrible idea, physically but emotionally, perfect. I was forced to pay attention to myself, to breathe, to exist in my own body without constantly thinking about what I'd lost. And slowly, the city stopped feeling like a graveyard of memories. Portland still rained, still smelled like coffee and wet pavement, but now it felt like home again in a way that didn't include her. I was just me. Some nights I still stared at my ceiling, replayed our conversations, remembered the laughter. But those memories stopped cutting me in half. They became stories I could tell myself without dying inside. The first week I genuinely smiled without thinking about her was the real turning point. Not because the pain vanished, it didn't, but because I realized I could feel joy without needing her there. And for the first time in months, I actually believed that maybe, just may. Part 8. Rediscovering myself. I didn't expect rediscovering myself to feel like this. Like, really. I thought I'd just stop thinking about her, and that would be it. Nope. It was messy, confusing, weirdly liberating. I started noticing the little things I'd abandoned over the past year, probably because I was trying too hard to fit her into my life. Music I actually liked, not the stuff she insisted was cool. Random hobbies I dropped because she wasn't into them. Walking my dog farther than the block outside our old apartment. Even eating cereal at 2 a.m. without guilt. That felt like rebellion. One day, I went for a long run I hadn't done in forever. My legs ached, my lungs burned, but there was this moment halfway through when I realized I wasn't thinking about her at all. Just me, my heartbeat, the city around me, the rain starting to fall. And I laughed, out loud, like a real, unself-conscious laugh. I started making plans again. Tiny ones at first: grab coffee with friends, a weekend trip to the coast, a museum visit I'd always postponed. And each time, I felt this strange mix of excitement and disbelief. I'm actually doing this for me, I'd think. Not to impress someone, not to patch a relationship, just for me. Even dating became lighter. Not because I was over her, I wasn't, but because I realized I didn't need anyone else to validate my worth. I went on a few casual dates, laughed at awkward moments, and then went home alone, smiling at the fact that I could enjoy someone's company without feeling desperate or desperate to fix something. The real breakthrough wasn't romantic. It was me finally living for myself. And that, more than anything, felt like a tiny victory worth celebrating. I still think about Emily, of course. I still get that stab of what if once in a while. But it's different now. It's no longer a knife in my chest. It's a memory, a lesson, a reminder of how fragile and human we all are. And for the first time in months, Part 9, letting go fully. This is the part no one really tells you about breakups. Letting go fully doesn't happen all at once. It's not a dramatic, clean cut. It's 1,000 tiny decisions you make without realizing it. For me, it started with social media. I stopped checking her profiles obsessively. I deleted old photos of us from my phone, not in anger, not as a stunt, just because I didn't need them anymore. Those pictures were memories, not anchors. I still remembered everything, but now remembering didn't hurt. Then I stopped replaying conversations in my head, dissecting every word like a forensic scientist obsessed with proving a theory. I stopped blaming myself, stopped wondering if I could have saved us. I started telling myself new stories instead, about what I wanted, who I was becoming, where I wanted to go. It was clunky at first. I catch myself thinking about her and immediately correct my thoughts. Not her, me. One day, I walked past our old coffee shop, the one where we met. I paused, and for the first time, I didn't feel sad. I felt grateful. Weird, right? Grateful for the time we had. Grateful it ended before it broke me completely. Grateful that I survived it. I even laughed about some of the dumb things we did together. The late-night arguments over nothing, the awkward first "I love you," the way she stole fries off my plate. Laughing didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like freedom. Letting go fully wasn't sudden. It wasn't cinematic. It wasn't even clean. But it was mine. And that ownership, small as it felt, was everything. And maybe that's the real point of heartbreak. Learning that your life doesn't stop when someone leaves. You just have to step into it, even if your heart is still a little bruised. Part 10, first glimpses of hope. I won't lie. There were days when hope felt impossible. Days when I thought I'd never smile at anything without thinking about her. But slowly, almost invisibly, things started to change. It started with small victories. I went to a concert alone and actually enjoyed it. I met a friend for coffee and didn't end up comparing everything to Emily. I even laughed at a joke on a late-night show and realized I didn't feel hollow while doing it. Then came the moments that made me feel alive again. Walking through Portland at sunset, feeling the air cool against my skin. Talking to someone new who wasn't a replacement, but a reminder that connection is possible. Taking risks on little things I've been scared of, ordering food I'd never tried, signing up for a pottery class, actually finishing a book I'd started months ago. Hope isn't dramatic. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It sneaks in while you're distracted. You notice it when you realize you haven't thought about them all day. Or when you laugh at something silly and don't feel guilty. Or when you look at your reflection and see someone who's stronger than they were a few months ago. For the first time in a long time, I believe the future could be more than just a void left by her absence. That maybe it could hold something better, something that's mine, something I didn't have to salvage from the wreckage of a past relationship. And honestly, that small glimmer of hope, fragile and quiet, felt revolutionary. It reminded me that heartbreak isn't the end. It's the starting point. Part 11, moving forward. Here's the thing about endings. They never feel like endings until you've actually moved past them. And moving forward doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean erasing someone from your memory or pretending it didn't hurt like hell. It just means life keeps happening and you finally let yourself live it. I started noticing little changes in myself. I smiled more easily. I argued less about meaningless things. I stopped apologizing for existing. I made plans that weren't tied to anyone else. Weekend trips, random hikes, spontaneous decisions that felt reckless but exhilarating. I even dated casually, though I wasn't looking for the one. Just human connection without expectation. Some of those moments were awkward, some fun, some forgettable. But all of them reminded me that life has layers, and one heartbreak can't flatten you completely. One evening, I walked past the bridge where Emily and I had first kissed. I paused and let myself remember it. The awkwardness, the excitement, the electricity. And then I kept walking. No panic, no tears, just a quiet acknowledgement. That memory was part of my story, but it didn't define the rest of it. I realized heartbreak isn't a wall. It's a doorway. Pain shows you what matters. Loss teaches resilience. And moving forward isn't about replacing someone. It's about reclaiming yourself. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll find love again or if I'll be happy on my own. But I know this, I survived. I learned. I grew. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I can finally breathe without carrying the weight of someone else's absence. Life isn't perfect. It's messy, unpredictable, and sometimes cruel. But it's also breathtakingly alive. And after everything, I'm ready to live it. Fully, unapologetically, and on my own terms.